There's your warning. Welcome to our Thursday book launch. My name is Malika Albrecht, and I'm the founding editor of Redheaded Stepchild. I am so excited because I have Tara Betts that we get to celebrate with, Refuse to Disappear. Please know that if you don't already have this book, you're going to want it. And these are poems that already I have a list of ones that I'm going back to for different reasons. And I think you'll probably have that same experience. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking because I really want to turn it over. But I did want to give you, if you don't know who we're celebrating tonight, her words. Tara Betts is the author of Break the Habit and Arc and Hue. In addition to her work as a teaching artist and a mentor for young poets, she has taught at several universities, which includes Rutgers University and University of Illinois, Chicago, and at Stateville Prison via the Prison and Neighborhood Arts Project. She is the inaugural poet for the People Practitioner Fellow at University of Chicago. Betts is also the poetry editor at the Langston Hughes Review and is a founder of a nonprofit organization, the Whirlwind Learning Center on Chicago's South Side. Yeah, right. I feel like we need to take a moment to and also acknowledge this is, someone who gives a lot to the community through poetry, through her presence, through her empowering motivation, through a brave speech. And I'm turning it over to you. And yeah, I know I'm fangirling, and I just am so excited. Welcome, Tara.
Wow. Thank you. That was such a generous introduction, and I'm glad people are still tuning in on Zoom to hear me talk about this book. And it's been a weird transitional time post-pandemic to get people to meet in public, but also to get on the computers when we've been on the computers for so long. So I much appreciate it. And I hope tonight, even if you don't get the book, you just at least enjoy the reading. So I'll start with that. And I'll read a couple poems from the book. I've been starting with this poem since we recently lost Nichelle Nichols. So this is called The Litany for Lieutenant Nyota Uhura. If you're a Star Trek fan, you know who this is. Jet black curl whipped past her ear, lined to the rounded angle of cheek, matched to meticulous batwing eyeliner. The red line sleek against thigh, then calves interrupted by black boots, but first, benediction. In praise of communicator chips, in praise of the flashing monitors, in praise of swirling chair that gave of her sharp lashes and poised vista of face. Enough, yet not enough. Martin Luther King, another captain of sorts, offered his gospel. She was to be seen, rocketing toward future. She is the vessel that carries and delivers when she is navigator, guide, and seer. She is the vessel that carries and delivers. How often she is captain without title, blamed as commander without privilege. Question: did the Vulcan ever ask her about what it feels like to be different? He removed his pointy ears and brows daily, ruffled his hair to normalcy, released his anesthetizing grip. She takes off her wig, but still wears herself, irreversible skin. She becomes vessel that carries and delivers. She serves as navigator, guide, and seer. She is the vessel that carries and delivers. How often she is captain without title, commander without privilege. Conversation that never happened. I waited for you and Sulu to cast glances like unwritten spells, give each other silent nods, forge some way to defect if aliens became allies. If the captain barked too many times and forgot, you were not just polished umber to fantasize about in a later episode. When you recall your surname means freedom and Sulu Sea touches Asia, when slavery and internment camps failed to turn your ancestors to dust, you, fourth in command, a helmsman never called lieutenant, could direct a story and steer the Starship Enterprise.
Mm.
So I'm just pulling up the chat box. You guys are fast. I was like, I just saw the little red box go ping, 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 ping. I was like, oh my goodness. It's like a video game.
We're talkers.
Yeah. And there's a restaurant. Margaret Burroughs comes up later in the book. She was the founder of the DuSable Museum and the Southside Community Arts Center, which is across the street from her former house. And that's the only WPA arts project building that has been in continuous operation since it was part of the WPA, and it's still up and running. It's on the South Side. Lots and lots of Black artists have gotten their start there or found a home there. Nat King Cole used to play the piano in the front room that's still there. Sometimes Gwendolyn Brooks would sit at that piano and write poems and look out at the street. But on the next block over, there's a soul food restaurant that has the most amazing buffet ever. And it's called Pearl's Place. So I wrote a poem and it was just talking. I took a picture of my plate one day and this is how it looked. A second plate at Pearl's Place. A bottle of half-empty hot sauce overlooks white plates. There are only yellow crumbs, bits of daylight on the smaller plate. A larger dish serves as a pillow that eases hunger to sleep. No need for sugar plums or sheep. Sweet potatoes candied into cinnamon-laced mash, piled next to light gold macaroni, gilded in savory cheeses. A fork crowns greens, turnip and mustard turned to tender smokiness, next to a medallion of salmon waiting to be pinned to a tongue and savored slowly. Who is clapping? Who is going to church over here? I'm just hearing.
That's me.
Goodness. I'm sitting here like, did I lose my rhythm? Okay. I didn't mean to make people hungry. I ate right before I came here. I'll step away. I don't know if there's any more food poems in here. There is a poem, however, about Ella Fitzgerald, and it's not the typical kind of poem we would expect to see. When she was a little girl, she had ended up in a juvenile detention hall, and this poem kind of talks about what happened to her when she was in juvenile detention. It's called The Urchin's Work. Between dips and swings of each syllable, Ella knew valleys between cheery notes. She carried a tisk, tisk, tisk in a tisket, a tasket, a yellow basket that seemed to be full of smiles until it could nearly burst, and how she learned standards. She worked until work verged on impossible, as unwanted children do. Create a joy that shields them from misery, a cocoon, a shell to block a stepfather's hands, a mother buried, an aunt who feebly helps as she runs numbers, a track star through Harlem, until Ella became delinquent, sent to Hudson, a sing-sing for girls that kept her quarantined, solitary, out of a choir reserved for white girls. Documents say that they don't have much on 1933, 1934, but there is a ledger bearing a committed colored girl's name, and she ran like a number bet on in one of her aunt's books. The articles say Ella had no biography, no interviews about this time upstate. Her voice rewrote a path. She never looked back. And I think about that a lot. Like, how can you imagine what it would be like to have a universe with no Ella Fitzgerald in it? I can't, but we don't always get to imagine people when they're young and what kind of hardships they get to before they become who they are. Um, but on another note, um, me and my best friend Aurelius, people hear about him all the time in my readings. I keep threatening to make a book of poems about me and him. Uh, but sometimes we do writing dates. We'll go and we'll hang out. We go, not like date dates, but we write, because you got to have your writer homies go write with you sometimes. Uh, and so one night we went to, there's this spot in Chicago. They moved from the location we were at where this poem took place, but it's called the Pick Me Up Cafe. And they would do these wonderful shakes and stuff, and they would be open 24 hours. So that was part of the appeal. We go right. And we went to go right there one night. We wrote a ton of stuff, and this is what happened. So it's called FUBU. After Solange Knowles, I am sitting in a cafe with my boy that I have known longer than my students have been alive before the birth of his firstborn son, and the waiter wears a tight black camisole with bright green beads. We smile because he is living his joy. And how many people do that on the daily? And how many of us know that joy, like pink and blue hair clips latched onto flawless waves? And we must know someday where we are as serene as Solange's expression, always shaming Mona Lisa, who never knew about the ice grill or paper cranes. I find myself wanting to raise my fists like I'm in an elevator with my sister's husband talking sideways, but I have no sisters as blood kin. I find myself wanting to celebrate all the history that made me and be a little gutter too, because once I carry it in my pocket, it's my slingshot and my stone, rubbed smooth by fingers and time. I find myself counting the sway of what I claim and protecting it like it's the last medallion that could be stolen. So yeah, if you don't remember Solange, yeah, somebody mentioned it, but Solange tried to jump Jay-Z in the elevator. We still don't know what he said, but I know he said something. He did something. Um, yeah, Regina's like, I could guess. I have my speculations too, but I'm gonna leave it alone. Um, there was an anthology a while back. They were looking for poems about ice cream. And sometimes that's my writing prompt. If I see somebody puts up a call for an anthology and I just say, you know what, why don't I try it? I'll see what I come up with. And Emmanuel's like, I need them to release the elevator tape. They did, but there's no audio on it. We can't hear what they said. So that's the problem. Okay, I'm gonna stop reading the comments. But in any case, the ice cream poem. And the first thing that came to mind was Wu-Tang Clan of all things. I don't know if anybody's a Wu-Tang Clan or if that's past their time for hip hop, but they had a really well-known song, well, particularly Raekwon, who's one of the members of the group. And it borrows a loop from this jazz song that sounds almost like an ice cream truck. So, that's kind of what got me started. I was like, okay, I'm in it. And this is where I went. Listening to Raekwon's Ice Cream, a revved up piano loop rotates Earl Klug's A Time to Love into tinkling ice cream trucks. Except one MC stands on a white truck and swings his walking stick and recites the familiar hook over beat. Each series of rhymes tries to woo a girl from around the way who must always remain cool, uninterested. Even then, don't be thirsty was a rule. Another MC asks her if her name is Erica, calls her Black Miss America, right? True. She offers a smirk. The other women dance around the truck in white ringer tees with black trims emblazed with curved capital W's above the letter turned symbol. Each woman is a flavor, French vanilla, butter pecan, chocolate deluxe, even caramel sundaes. What woman who wants to be cherished and whole would be edible, sweet, an object? What woman wouldn't want to be wanted, held, savored, licked, and called sweet if one chooses to be? Let me see. I'll read this one. It's a little bit different. It looks weird on the page to me. So it jumps, well, not that one, but this one, it goes boop, 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 boop. But I think it lends itself well to where I want to pause. So I'm glad I did it that way. It's called What Bucks or Breaks. And I guess I'm just thinking about freedom. You know, particularly what does it mean when you're a grown woman and you don't have kids and you have been unfettered from a spouse and now you're like, yay. So I think that's kind of on my mind. What bucks or breaks? Watch me press flat this bristling moment that softens to mature bitter, this tense sugar spun from shimmering refuse, absence turned solo, celebrating living as one, not two, because who needs a trap woven from a promise that favors maroon ropes, a bloody cat's cradle, a cage, this planned life, puzzle out and escape, confinement labeled as safe. Don't trust the hands that throw you on a whim, safeguarding half-baked lies, nothing that protects or bucks the saddle, chucks the soft rein, or breaks. I reject iron hammered to my feet. I paint these lips, brighten my face, dress in my wishes, ignore solicitous open palms, and greet my breath.
Y'all can unmute. I know you want to be doing what I'm doing, which is clapping. That was awesome.
Oh, it was so beautiful.
Thank you guys. I don't know where I'm at on time, but
you are good. Keep going. But I just had to say what bucks or breaks. There's just so much in that. I just I wanted to pause and say, just unmute. I know I want to.
You know, I think I was thinking about there's a Puerto Rican poet that I really love named Julia de Burgos. And I think a lot about her when I think about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be free, you know. And she was considered the Puerto Rican poet laureate of the island. And Jack Agueros, who was really a prominent Puerto Rican poet in New York, he translated the book with another poet. I always forget her name. I feel terrible. But if look for it, the collection is called Song of the Simple Truth. And I just always think of her when I write a poem that sounds like that. I'm like, I know that's Julia creeping in. But I'll read this one. It's a shorter poem. Bob Dylan wrote about George Jackson, who was in correspondence for a long time with Angela Davis and wrote a couple of really powerful books during the Black Power movement before he was killed in a prison yard under questionable, at best, circumstances. And Bob Dylan wrote a song about it. So when Dylan woke to George Jackson's death, sometimes I think this whole world is one big prison yard. Some of us are prisoners, the rest of us are guards. Bob Dylan. That August 1971 morning, Dylan could have been rattled alive, shaken with everything the Panthers could have told him. And Angela Davis's bold, soft-spoken tenets raking across his grief when he lifted his pen and pressed letters into words on paper. Some blues fell out of his grief to say, Lord, Lord, because the prison guard shot Jackson to death, bleeding and without a single weapon. The ballad closed on every verse that a life sentence is not equal to $70 stolen, much less his life, that George never lived on his knees. So Dylan echoed what the Black folks knew: he would not bow. Um, Trying to think, what's one I haven't read like a bunch of times? Uh, you know, I did flip back to this one. So I've been thinking a lot about what it's meant to me to teach in jails and prisons. And I'm kind of still scared to go back because of COVID. And I know the conditions are not great. And I'm really blessed to be able to say that, because there's a lot of people who are stuck there regardless of what the conditions are like. So if you know anybody who needs support, or if there are local prisons in your area where they need fresh water because water quality can be questionable in those places, all that kind of stuff, I encourage you to look at an organization that's working with prisons in your area. But this was a poem. It kind of was inspired by the first time I went into Stateville, when I first started going. And when I went, the lawns inside of the wall, Stateville is a very big prison. They had several buildings that had panopticon style buildings. So if you've ever read Michel Foucault's Discipline and Punish, there are pictures of the old Stateville. But even the more recent buildings are kind of run down. But when you see all the grass, it's like perfectly manicured, because people who are working in the prisons keep them up, and they do all these things, like they'll cut circular patterns in the grass and make it look really beautiful. And I just kept thinking about that. I said, this is strange. It just felt strange. And I was thinking about that, and this poem kind of came out of it. So it's called Long Division. How many decades of calendars reveal what is starkly plantation? How wide green fields are within the walls, floors polished spotless as walls sag with layers of paint older than me. It is endless counting for the regimented lines to meals, walks within gated yards for men on crutches, infinite uniforms to wash, dawns and nights, but time hangs, looms for acts committed so quickly, or not. Time lassos anchors to their necks. Most of those necks are dark inheritors of knotted rope legacies. Moments in a classroom with a broken window remind me of younger students, but they are men, men who are fathers and uncles, in a place where books are minted as rare capital. They think I am sitting at a table full of Black and brown men in a classroom, which never happens outside these walls. The wrongness of prisons and schools collide, the grand execution of an intentional mistake. And intentional means a deliberate act, not an accident. An accident is not orderly rows or an easy rhythm to follow. Recovering from accidents is easier. This frittering away of lives behind concrete and bars punches into registers, rings incessantly, calculated yet incalculable. And, I'm thinking about, thank you guys. So I live in a small building. So again, if you show up, don't show up in my house. You might startle me and the neighbors. So I live in a small building, and so I know most of my neighbors. Some of them change out a little bit. And for a short time, my neighbor who was on the third floor, one of them had a pit bull. And so I don't normally write poems about dogs, but I really like this dog, so I wrote about him. Priest the pit bull. Priest the pit bull greeted me the first day he moved into my building. his tan fur shining as he wiggled. At least 3/4 of his body wagged when I patted his head and stroked his sinewed back. His mouth, open and panting, made up at least half of his face, full of teeth, but gently smiling. I called his name, shouted to him and the other neighbors when I heard his ticking claws on hallway tiles. I'd laugh about Ron O'Neal playing his namesake in Superfly. He'd quietly trot over and let me pet him. He never needed a leash. Nothing felt like fear gnashing its teeth into the back of my hand. I make it a habit to return kindness to other living beings, even when the world marks them as dangerous. And, so I was thinking about this poem because I didn't realize this book, every book that I've written, somebody that I knew had passed away. So by the time I had published my first book, it was my great uncle. And by the time I did my second book, my mother was gone. And I have a lot of older friends. So I'm just like, I don't want all my older friends to be gone, you know. But one of my older friends that I count and mention a lot now that this book is out is Eric Priestley. And we were internet friends. We didn't get to meet in person, unfortunately, but we wrote to each other quite a bit. And he was one of the writers who started the Watts Writers Workshops in Los Angeles. And he told me about his childhood growing up in the South and, you know, some of the stuff he was reading. And he came out with a book a few years ago called For Keeps, that was a novel. And I was thinking about him when I was writing this poem, and it's got an epigraph from him, and it ended up being the title poem. And I didn't get a chance to tell him before he passed away. It was kind of sudden. But I'm encouraging people to look him up, look up links and videos of him on YouTube, because there's videos of him. He loved to chew a rag, let me tell you. So there's plenty of stories for you to at least get to know him posthumously. And this is the poem for him, Refuse to Disappear. The sunsets I saw are cluttered with the bones of these ashes. Time is the fire in which we burn. From Eric Priestley's Rage. The dawns I see burst with ghosts of exhumed ruins. Plans are murderers in which we disappear. We are bent to follow the maze where wall turns into wall after wall, and we keep turning when we should climb. Look over the walls. It gets more difficult to make them too high or hide a point of exit. Time may burn, and I refuse to disappear. So where are we, Miss Albrecht? What should we do next?
I'll tell you, Allison wrote, read them all. Just keep reading. Read them all.
Oh my gosh. Then everybody's going to need a bathroom break and everything else.
Oh my gosh.
Just let the water flow. Just let the water flow.
Let the waters in? Is that what you
Just
said?
let the water flow.
Just let the water flow. Yeah.
No,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
that's a lot to clean up. We're not doing that.
You are welcome to keep reading. I'm sure also people have things they want to say, because there's been a lot of activity in the comments section, in our chat section.
Yeah, I've been kind of doing this, but trying not to look too hard, because then I know I get goofy.
Because I'm sure it's dinging. There's a lot of activity.
Yeah. Which, thank you for that. I'm like,
I think it's so great for you to be able to see all the things that resonated and came to mind as you were reading. Just stunning. Yeah, Kim wrote, thank you for the incredible, all these great poems.
I find myself trying to jump around, because you know what happens with a lot of poets, they end up picking their 4 or 5 poems that they read everywhere. I was like, oh gosh, I don't want to do that tonight. So
I'm glad. It's good to hear poems that, that also you may not normally, choose in a reading. All of them have just been stellar. Of course, I got to
You have
say,
a request, Malika? That's what
I do. I was going to say, is it wrong? Out of the Crate, Prince is a short poem, but y'all
Oh, it's a haiku-ish thing.
better understand. She also can, power punch you with a few little words.
Yeah, I think that's why I put it in there, because I was like, I like writing little short poems. It's not quite a haiku. It looks haiku-ish.
Yeah.
Like it might be kind of like a double haiku when you see how little it is. But yeah, I had a crush. That's where that came from.
Right.
Crush that went nowhere, like many crushes. But here's the poem, Out of the Crate. Send him each one of the old Prince records. Spread them on the living room floor. Glide over him like a needle following the grooves. And that's it.
Thank you.
Love that.
Yes. Oh, that's fabulous.
I love the hand motion. Who's doing the hand motion?
Yeah. Right.
Yes, Kim. Yeah. Oh my God. I get so easily tickled. It's so bad. But I guess I've just been jumping around too, because I feel like out of all three books, this is the one book where I've kind of just put different aspects of what I saw in myself. I thought it was going to be a book where I was focusing on women and women that I wanted to be recognized. And then it started to morph into, who else do I think is invisible? And who do I want to be more visible? And then what are some of these ideas that I've been thinking about for the past couple of years? And they kind of converged in a way that made sense. So I say that because everybody's doing these thematic books. And I kind of think, does it really need to be a thematic book? Or does it just have to have a flow that's really clear and the poems can stand alone? Right. I see there's a request in the chat for a poem that I have not read yet. So I'm happy to read it. And it's funny how, for a change, like I wasn't like 20 years or 10 years ahead of somebody, and everybody's been like, oh my God, this poem fits into the current news peg, which I never do, apparently. So this one ended up being that because it was a poem about Simone Biles and Simone Manuel, who was a swimmer, who was also in the Olympics around the same time. And this is for them, the two Simones, for Simone Biles and Simone Manuel. Miraculous is a woman, her dedication, her skill, the body that she wills to slice air high above heads, land precisely. Her shoulders squared, she tumbles in a leotard, commands every shift in muscles, the master of limbs in her own flip, the twist of body, swift and exacting. She loops, spirals her way to lift arms, upright arch. Miraculous is woman who snaps into taut line as she barely breaks the water's surface. No engine or combustion ignites her push past the others determined to make their mark. She is focused. Her hands clench the lip of the pool. Her nails polished red, white, and blue lacquer. She covers her mouth as she bobs in the water and begins to weep. These two Simones, in namesake and spirit, sever wind and water, recall another Simone, Nina. I wish I knew how it feels to be free. I'm looking, Kim wrote a long comment. I feel like all poems you've read are unified by your voice.
Oh, amen, 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 what you just said. I'm sorry to butt in.
Thank you.
Jump in. I like it. That's why we have, our community. This is It's good to be moved.
It is. It is. I'm just like, I blush easily too. It's not showing up yet, but it can come up any moment now. I'll just be real pink, and then you'll be like, ah, Bets is pink. It's just- but I'm kind of jumping around. I don't know if we should go into questions. I feel like I've been telling long stories and doing everything else.
I think that's part of the joy of having you here. I mean, I think that's
Great.
why Allison wrote, just keep reading.
Yeah, I'll read
yes.
a couple because I think what I've found is doing the Zooms, I'm almost expecting people now to be like, they want to talk more than they want to hear poems. You know, and I think it's a function of where we've been in the culture, right? That we've been at home so long. It's like, yeah, I can read the book, or I've already read the book, and now I just want to talk to people about stuff. So it's been strange. Like I've had a couple readings where we read one or two poems, and then everybody else is like, la, 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 la. So I'm almost used to that now.
Well, I was going to say, everybody here is doing the same thing I am. It's just so lovely to hear you read. And you, besides just how you approach subjects, there is something in the way you use words that is amazing. And it sets this rhythm of space and in your reading that is just, it's almost impossible not to get drawn in. And I don't know if other people are having that same experience, such powerful words, but also there's something in the spacing and the musicality of the words that is hard not to feel in your body. So you could keep reading for the rest of the night, and I think all of us would be like, "Yay, you got."
I might get tired, but
yeah. But I do also want to acknowledge too that I know, yeah, people want to talk. Virginia just said, "I've written 1,000 things you've said to respond to. I'm extraordinarily inspired."
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and I love to listen
Kim
to
and Allison.
this beautiful poetry. Yeah, and always love a Tara Betts reading. Yeah.
Well, I know I can tell you some other stories, read some other poems. I'll do at least 2 more, but I definitely want to hear from other folks if you have questions. And this is great. It feels like a little love fest, and I so appreciate it. You know, it's me and the books. That's where I'm at right now. It's like me plus a population of books. This is just part of it. So there's actually Andy Warhol has a piece in a museum in downtown Chicago called Little Race Riot. And I was just sitting there one day. I had gone to look at another exhibit, and I kept staring at it. I said, okay, I got to write a poem about it. So here we go. A stab at ekphrasis after Andy Warhol's Little Race Riot. I think it's on page 49, since I know Malika's in her book. The man in a straw fedora is not the center of the reproduced photograph. Black and blue, like Louis Armstrong's plaintive query. Black and white, like America being simple about every damn ingredient that fills its pot, often stirred by Black hands. The man in a straw fedora is being chased to the margins. 2 officers chase him, but the German shepherds are central. Every movement in a country where darker bodies stand down with empty raised hands, and some will write, photograph, and paint the origami sharply unfolded in this silkscreen pair. Surely, someone's cousins are in the background, where dogs are hardly restrained, and the protagonists on the right side of this story will be subjects, fodder for weapons and auction still on repeat. The same photo rendered again to replicate how American horrors are great and how any riot rising is laughably not little. there was this image when there were many, many protests happening in Baltimore, and I wrote this book um, before the pandemic. It was done. It was just sitting, and I was trying to find a home for it. And the stuff that was happening in Baltimore was really moving to me, in the wake of Freddie Gray and, all these Black Lives Matter protests. And there were these images. There's been so many protest images that were so unique to us being in the 21st century that I just was clicking through photographs. And I saw this one with a young woman who, on the internet, they keep saying her name is Shamika Dream. So I'm assuming that's who she is. But she has on all white. She's holding a sage smudge. And there's a line of police officers in full riot gear in front of her. And I just wanted to write a poem about that. And this is what I got. Sage and Shields for Shamika Dream. On Baltimore's North Street, lacing the line of officers with a smoldering sage, no riot erupted in your face. A white line of gentle smoke, your scarf pointed towards them, a compass to cleansing. You walked to one end of the line to the other, an embodied breeze. Black, green, yellow bracelets on your wrists, land, light, and skin remembered, your lids lowered in prayers that every head under helmet and shield finds indecipherable. Your hair pulled back, water in your left hand, another way to cleanse and honor the dead. Officer shields held up high, so each man stood unknowing. You summoned. They will answer to another type of army. So now I'm just looking. And then people were like, it's been funny to read that poem, and then people go, what is that last line about? And I'm like, are we that far gone? Are we that far gone that we don't know? But our ancestors follow us, our ghosts follow us everywhere we go, But maybe I'm just being a little witchy. Who knows? The army is these hands. Oh my God. I gotta put the chat down and stop looking at you guys. Y'all are gonna make me laugh too hard. There's a movie that came out a few years ago, shot entirely on a cell phone. It's on Netflix. It's called Tangerine. I don't know if anybody has seen it, but it's a story about a day in the life of two trans women who are sex workers in Los Angeles. And I couldn't get that image out of my head of how some people would look at that like that's not a normal thing. But I'm also like, they remind me of what you do when your girlfriend, when you've had a horrible day, right? Like there's a certain level of kinship, or you have the one friend who's kind of wild, the other friend who's composed, and how do you balance each other out? Like I was thinking about all this, and so I came up with a poem for them called Tangerine. 1. Patterned stockings under folded down cutoffs, curved in Cindy's crisscross lean, in rapid buckled steps of bent knees, midriff leopard tied above the waist, flips brassy blonde of her wig. Alexandra holds no cigarettes, but clear high notes, streak of a tear, a pouch of skin that she refused. 2. Alexandra smooths hair under jaw, coupled with eyebrow arches, slick as brown leather jacket, a camel-colored purse strap on her shoulder. Sleek, Alexandra avoids fights, finds release from trade in a car wash, foam plumes curl on the windshield. 3. Urine flies in Cindy's face on a Hollywood Christmas Eve as she solicits the next, and silence becomes a tight jacket over her shoulders. Alexandra still comes back, pulls Cindy into a 24-hour laundromat, yanks the piss-slick clothes away to wipe Cindy clean. Another pass at innocence known by night women, denied permits for shame and dignity. Alexandra unpins her halo of polished black from rounded stocking cap, fits the wig on Cindy's naked nylon netted head. Neither one speaks. No one says prostitutes and men who know strolls. They do exactly what sisters do. And people were, yes, if you have not seen the movie, Monica's like, I've seen that movie. It's a great movie, you know. And it's amazing how something, if it's popular for 5 seconds, it just falls out of the imagination really quickly. But it's still worth seeing. I'm sure it's on Netflix. I'm going to read this poem really quick, and hopefully we could talk a little bit. I'm excited to talk. I'll close with this poem. It's for one of my former students, Sierra Miller, who used to live with me. She lived with me for a while when we both moved back to Chicago from the East Coast. And she had gotten a job and I had gotten a job, but she didn't have a place to live. So I said, come stay with me. I got an extra bedroom. And I had just gotten a job at a university here. And this is what happened the day I went to move into my office. And this poem is called Inventory. Standing with boxes in our arms on the tail of August, while morning brushes our faces, we ascend in an elevator and never let papers fool us. Some will remind us of our descent. Our kind are clipped, disadvantaged. A rise rendered far-fetched splits clouds while I unpack highlighters and a tea kettle that rests on my desk, that surrendered grit and silt to lemony disinfectant. Coffee rings disappeared under the now smooth surface where my pens gather with clips and prongs from binders. We unpack these trappings to feel at home in a place that opened but never welcomed us. Mentioning our names is an act of subversion. I unwrap a tape dispenser without stuttering when a woman from a few doors down eyes my name on the office door, looks at the lamp on the desk next to mine, bumbles through keeping track of supplies while her eyes shift between our thick, tall, brown bodies in silent questioning. I ask one question about inventory, but I keep taking stock of how many times I say, I bought these new things. This is my office. I feel like Karen got it and then did, oh. But
oh, if y'all want to unmute and we could just take a moment to say, Tara, thank you so much. I loved all the stories too. I was glad that you started talking in addition to the poems.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a long chat section when I send it to you.
Oh my gosh.
You did amazing. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you all. I'm so glad.
Thank
Again,
you so much. It was wonderful.
doing anything with your Thursday night, you chose to spend it with me. So I appreciate you all for it.
Thank
And
you.
Kim really got it, that last line.
Hell yeah.
Things. This is my office.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you've ever felt like, I think that's the compelling thing about higher education sometimes is realizing how many times you get imposter syndrome doing mundane things. You know, I'll be like, if anybody's supposed to be here, it's me. I've been here for all this part of my adulthood and now I have a PhD. You better let me in.
Judgment is nasty.
Yeah, it is. But again, thank you so much. And
Thank you. And
wherever you guys want to start. Huh?
We're kind of
With
back.
some applause.
Oh, you want to applause?
Yeah.
Let's go for it, Kim. I kind of feel like we're
Yeah.
back to what Kim wrote about dignity for humans and all humans, you know, that yearning
Mhm.
for freedom and dignity. And I
Yes.
just think that that's so much of like Tangerine and all the poems that you read, they thread through with this strong, beautiful sense of seeing people who are typically looked at like this
Yeah.
or askance or side-eyed.
Mm.
Yeah. I do think about that a lot. Like, how does the point of view and who you're talking to change what details you choose or what you emphasize, whether it's a poem or a novel? I think, I mean, that's one of the things I constantly come back to,
Mhm.
you know, because you're going to choose different things to focus on depending on who's talking
Mm-hmm.
and who you want to reach, you know?
Do people have any questions, or are we just all still blown away, just steeping in it?
I know I get a little nervous. It also reminds me of my students. They're always just like, did you read the book? Let me stare at you.
I'm just lifted up and buoyed on the incredible work. So my silence is a taking in and a
Yeah.
appreciation.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, and not wanting to fill the space when I'm just
Mm.
happy and full, you know?
I so appreciated your Ella Fitzgerald poem. And, you know, I've written about her too. And my poem is more about her power
Mm,
when she's performing. And there's a difference between like honoring the person's power and dignity in its own right
mhm,
versus like what it's doing for me. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Like as the receiver. And I just really have so much respect for you going back and focusing on that period in her life and how she was like, I'm writing myself a new story out of this place,
Mhm.
which
And
she did, obviously, you
yeah,
know.
and I think the thing that was most ironic to me is not that, you know, she was in the system, you know,
Oh, hell no.
that happens to a lot of people if they're economically disadvantaged or any number of reasons, right? But that they wouldn't let her be in the choir, that it was a whites only choir for the girls who were in the facility. And I'm like, oh my God.
Really?
If they had known, right, would they have done that? Or do they even care? I mean, historically, 1933.
Mhm.
But it seems particularly horrific because that is like that gift. And then to say you don't get to have that or share that or be a part of this.
Right. Like,
And that, you know, and still being able to survive.
mhm.
And
Mhm.
Well, we can all take gratification in the fact that she had the last word on that shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely,
I think
definitely
that's
true.
why I was like, I want to write that poem.
Joan, yes, jump
Yeah.
in.
Tara, what was your previous book? What did you do in your previous book?
Oh, the one with the spider on it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's it.
Yeah,
I've been
I did my little read.
looking. Yeah.
But Break the Habit, it was, I wrote that book when I was living in Binghamton, New York. It's primarily poems that are concerned with after my divorce. And I was struggling to find a way to end that book. And this spider showed up on my front porch. And I gave the spider a name because it was too big. I didn't want to kill it. Um,
I would have
It's
killed
just-
it.
See, it's outside. I figure it's outside. It's catching the little gnats and mosquitoes. We're gonna let Craig chill on the porch. So that was Craig's. That was the name of the spider. And I started posting about Craig on Facebook. And people started asking me about, like, Craig was like a person or like my best friend. And I was like, oh gosh, I really do look forward, like, because I was so much in isolation during my PhD, I started looking forward to seeing the spider. And I was like, there's something to this. I'm not crazy. Why? And then it got to the point where I was seeing spiders everywhere.
Yeah.
like one day I had on like a little bracelet and I saw a tiny white dot on the bracelet and there was this little spider just on, I couldn't even feel it. It was that small. So I just looked at it. I said, you know what? This is really trippy. It started building a web in between two of my fingers. I just watched it for a while. And then I kind of like gently blew it off somewhere so I didn't kill it because I'm like, it's a baby. It doesn't want me. Anyway. Or I went to an airport one time and I hadn't written in a couple days and I get the itch when I haven't written enough. I can always, I'm like, oh God, if I don't write, I'm going to snap. So I was in an airport heading home. I see a spider drop down from the top of my suitcase as I'm putting it on the weight at the airport. And I just looked at it and I said, I know I need to be writing. And whenever I would say that, the spider would leave. So I started doing all this research on spiders. I was reading entomology books. I was looking at mythology around spiders. So of course you think about Anansi and stuff like that. And I saw this one story about the Druids and how the Druids believed that spiders were like these messengers that were powerful for writers. And I said, oh, okay, that's why you keep showing up. You're trying to tell me I got to finish this and y'all are going to be in it. And so that, so I just started kind of I plugged in a few spider poems. I had a lot more ideas, but I wanted them to be central to this idea of spiders are brutal in their relationships and so are human beings. Mm-hmm. So you kind of see that little turn at the end of, yeah, are we really different? You know, are we any less brutal than spiders to each other? We may not eat each other, but
we're animals.
Man, we're animals too.
Yeah.
Maybe there will be some more poems.
The other book was Arc and Hue.
Yes, I think that's up there too. It's the one black and orange on it. So I'm afraid if I lean back, I'm going to make something fall on me. So I'm not going to reach back and grab it. But it's this
They're
one.
side by side.
Yeah. I don't think it's in print anymore. You can find used copies of that one online. I know for sure.
Thanks for asking that, Joan. And it made me want to hear poems from those books too. I was like, just reach back. But
I can.
Did I miss any questions in the chat section? Because I sometimes do that where if you've written a question and I'm supposed to be paying attention, I may have missed it. So if I did, please feel free to jump in. You don't even have to raise your hand. Just jump in, unmute.
Yep. Anybody. I'm very approachable. I tell people all the time, I don't bite, I don't spit, I don't kick, you know.
Thank you so much, Tara. I'll
just fabulous.
Just a moment again. And somebody wrote, this is a love fest. We love you. It was Karen. You wrote that, Karen. Yeah.
This is the best night for poetry I've had in a long time.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome, Christy. And Christy comes every week.
Thanks you all. I have to chime out. I'm so grateful to be here.
So good to see you.
Bless you all. Thank you, Tara.
Bye, Kim.
Bye-bye.
We have time for open mic? I know we're running over. If people have to leave, I respect and understand, but I have a list of people. I have Joan, Amy, Gary, Karen with a C, and Regina. Did I miss anybody? If I did, just send me a note. And so let's do that. I will come to you, Joan. And Christy, I'm sorry you can't read. I would take your book out and read for you.
Pick one if you want to.
I may do that. I'll have to see if I can find it.
I'll read a poem from my new book. This is Orange Tulips. A very short poem. Young tree, O tree, I prayed to, through a sealed window, through a steel screen. I traced your branches through 4 seasons. The television screamed, the people slumped and raved. I knew you, lovely one, from 5 floors up. God spoke from your buds and leaves to remind me I was still alive, to urge me to rise up, my tender, captive tree.
Captive tree. Thank you, Joan. Amy, I'm coming towards you.
Okay. So,
There we go. Thank you. When you talk,
Okay.
I suddenly see you. I got you now. Okay.
and now I just lost my page. I'll be right there. I'm gonna read.
No worries. No-
Oh, okay, got it. All right, I'm gonna read a poem from my new book, Defying Extinction, and this is called Queen of Tone. Abigail Ibarra didn't live 9 lives. She stopped at 1. Her job spanned over 50 years at Fender Guitars, where small, nimble hands of a Latino teen made waves. A pickup winder, she advanced from work in soldering and lit a path for other young women who found joy in a unique job. Striving for brilliance, her electric guitars mesmerized legions of fans and radicalized the sound of rock music. She drew demand from Jimi Hendrix, Joan Jett, Eric Clapton, who relied on her handcrafted pickups for their edgy sound. A legacy with measure, they say she wound guitar wire that would have circled the world 16 times. Thank you.
Okay. That's awesome. Gary, I'm heading towards you. There we go.
Thank you all for letting me be part of your community for the evening. I'm from Central California, where there are a lot of peaches and grapes grown. And this is about a man I knew when I was growing up. It's called Mr. Irwin, room 204. Ethel, when I die, you can sell the berry vineyards as long as you get a good price. I'll write down some figures for you before you leave. You don't need to stay much longer. I know this room makes you sad, partly because I will die in it, and partly because it doesn't meet your standards of cleanliness, even as a hospital, but mostly because you are frightened by me and the shrunken reminder of what I used to be, your husband, companion for 49 years, of forgetting 49 years as anything more than a string of days moving together, leading to this one, where I look out at scalded bushes shaped into green boxes next to the parking lot, and think of boysenberries bulging, seedy, staining my fingers and lips and yours, when we were the only pickers we could afford, when we could still make a living on 20 acres, and we were in love. We were up to our noses in purple, seedy love, and we did not know we were going to be here today. Tomorrow when you come, don't talk of the vineyard. Don't need me to talk. Don't bring anything that reminds you of anything except our purple tongues when we kissed as we moved together after the harvest.
Beautiful.
I'm talking and I'm completely muted. I said, beautiful, Gary. I am headed towards you, Gary. Wow. There we go.
Wow. All right, I got some fresh ink tonight. I thought I wrote this yesterday, but apparently I wrote it today. It's had a rewrite. Okay. Ferryman and Crow. The ferryman knows how to seize opportunity. 2 hands on the wheel, distribute your weight. It's not only sink or swim, it's float as well. It's also propel, fair weather or unfair, prepare and move through, will do, as crow will do, as crow will do. Crow knows how to hunt in the shallows and gather the tightly shut, heavy, ridged shells and scatter the shells beside the painted on lines on the road from the ferryman's landing. Crow knows how to seize opportunity, fair weather or unfair. Cars will exit the ferry, will thump across gravel, will bump onto asphalt, will crack open the heavy, ridged shells beneath tires as they leave. Prepare and move through. Preparation nets a feast, fresh clams every time.
Crow knows, Karen.
Those oracle cards.
Oh, that's okay. That's beautiful. Regina, I'm coming to you. There we are.
So I was fully prepared to do something else, and then I listened to Tara and I was like, oh my gosh, you made me shift because your reading just brought me so much joy. I have to say that it just brought me so much joy, and I wanted to celebrate this Black joy. Okay. So the title of this is To Whom It May Concern Regarding Black Joy. Upon the purchase of a Black History Month t-shirt, one that almost shut me down in my local Target, chanting at me from the racks, radiate Black joy, I determined that it was my time to shine, radiate, unwind all of my joy. Yet, as I lay the shirt across my bed, face set on grateful for my find, my ancestors moved from my belly up into my opened ears, and I heard their whispers, words not relegated to the intentional, traditional observations of Black history. I stood, picked up the shirt, slid it over my head, and was divinely compelled to consider, to list the layers for myself and others of what it means to radiate Black joy. For if we are honest, this Black joy as a construct is shaped by the misshapen circumstances of history. For indeed, Black joy is what is birthed between bouts of Black pain. It is molded to sustain. It is compelled to keep moving through one degree of uncertainty to the next. It is the production of delicacies from disposable waste. It is the retention of the spirit that has been carried in ancestors from generation to generation, hidden and released in clearings, introduced through uttered prayers and praise, and it emerges in various forms, sometimes like tears, sometimes like immovability. It can even hide under other feelings, mask in mysteries, cloak in glances, in ways of speaking, laugh behind closed eyes and lips, while yet another layer of joy plants the seeds of the knowledge that there are golden pieces of Black gifting, of Black strength, even of Black prophecy that cannot be removed from Black existence. That is that Black joy, knowing that even in derision, there is provision. In this joy that secrets us and the gifts that save us, this joy that reminds us that trouble don't last always, and weeping endures for a night, but joy comes in the morning light, and at times, good times. Black joy requires Black bodies to throw back their heads and laugh loudly and move freely, play spades, the dozens, dance, love, create, 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 share, care, save the whole world. The children know that there is love just there in Black joy. And for all who may be concerned, know this: while this joy is juxtaposed to pain, the glory is that it can emerge again and again and again. Black joy, shine, radiate, refine, create more and more. Great God, Black joy. You tell anyone else who wants to know, just tell them, go on and know that there is more in store from this brilliant, unbelievably resilient Black joy.
Oh, Regina, glad you chose that one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Open Mic. Y'all once again brought it. I'm glad you were here for that, Tara. Our open mics are always amazing. We just have a group of people that, and I want to point out, there are a lot of people that have books coming out, and if you or already have books out, if you put it in the chat section, we let people know where to get your work. Regina's got work coming out in 2023, Finishing Line Press. Christy Williams, her book came out for Finishing Line Press. Jones, Orange Tulips is out. There we go. Thank you, Joan. Amy, we cannot forget Amy. Put your book in there. And Gary, I saw you were reading from a book, but you didn't say that. So if you could say that would be.
I'll put that in the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And once again, you can reach out to Tara and get your signed copy of Refuse to Disappear. Glad y'all were here today to celebrate on a Thursday. This is the highlight of my week, and y'all are my community.
Thank you for letting me join
y'all
you guys
next
too.
week.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Thank you, Tara.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Talk to you soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I'll be sending you a message with the link for anybody who missed it.